Hey guys, it's Aleximo, and since I've been doing a lot of pokespe content on the channel lately, or at least a lot more than none I did in the past, I decided it would be fun to make a quick video kinda sharing some of my opinions on the series and the characters. So I'm going to be making two tier lists, one about the different chapters and one about the different characters. I think this will be a fun way to get to know my opinions, and also for you to share yours down in the comments. Alright, let's get started. Alright, let's start off by putting Red, Green, and Blue chapter in the B tier. This is very much the start of pokespe, where the mangaka are trying to figure out what they can and can't do with this series. Like, they're starting to change up stuff, make their own storyline, and I think it's very experimental and is really good for what it is. But being experimental, it's not the best thing ever. I do find it weird that the main plot is Team Rocket, but then it ends with the Pokemon League. But, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. But overall, it's a great start to pokespe. Yellow chapter is an easy S tier. I mean, at this point, the mangaka know they can do whatever the hell they want, as long as the story's good, right? So they take the Elite Four and totally change up their characters. They introduce this brand new character, Yellow, and just go ham, making this perfect sequel story, making a sequel to Red, Green, and Blue before the games even did that with Gold and Silver. Like, the manga predicted a sequel game. Not really, but kinda. Anyway, this chapter is so good. I absolutely love Yellow. She has a great character arc. And overall, this is just a perfect sequel, building off of all the older characters while introducing the newer characters. It's just perfect. Gold, Silver, Crystal chapter is going to go into A tier, and basically this chapter starts the 4-generation long trend of starting each generation with a gigantically long chapter, and that's great. These long chapters are great places to tell very long stories, and therefore some really good stories. And I think Gold, Silver, Crystal chapter is a great story. Silver is one of my all-time favorite dex holders, we'll get to that later, but there's definitely problems with this, and since it's their first time making something big, I think they have a hard time balancing everything. It feels like we're constantly jumping around from this place to this place. We're with Gold, Silver, and Crystal, now we're with Red, now we're with Chris, and all that stuff, and it's kind of all over the place, but overall, it's still amazing. Ruby and Sapphire chapter is another A tier, and this chapter pretty much is very similar to the last chapter in that, that giant chapter at the start of the generation. And I love Ruby and Sapphire's characters. I think they're some of the best dex holders. I love the ship, and I feel like I can say so many things about the same as Gold, Silver, Crystal chapter, whereas it is a great overarching story with one major flaw. And for that, I would say it's the ending. It really starts to drag at the end, and then there's Celebi Ex Machina, which is just horrible, like, just absolutely awful, but other than that, this chapter is amazing, so I'll put it in the A tier. Fire Red, Leaf Green chapter is perfect, and probably my second favorite chapter in all of pokespe. This is how you make a remake chapter. We are revisiting the first 5 dex holders, and getting to really re-experience them and give them more character development. I love seeing all these characters again. I love seeing Red again. Deoxys vs Mewtwo is one of the best battles in the entire manga. I think one of the best parts of this chapter is how they actually place a big emphasis on all of the characters' families. I might make an analysis video on that in the future because I think it's a really interesting part of the chapter. Emerald chapter is a solid B tier. I really enjoyed this chapter. I think it gets a lot of hate because Emerald isn't the best protagonist, but I enjoyed his character. He had a fun arc he developed, and I liked how he interacted with all of the dex holders. This was a great culmination of years worth of pokespe, and I don't think we'll ever get anything like it again. It wasn't the best chapter for sure, but it was really good for what it was. Diamond and Pearl chapter is an A tier. This is the same thing I was talking about before with Gold Silver chapter and Ruby and Sapphire chapter. It's great. This chapter is great. It's a little at the end. I don't like how Diamond's Regigigas was handled. Like, I love Regigigas as a Pokemon for Diamond, but it was rushed. But this chapter is great overall. The first half is just fun, kind of slice of life. The second half, we really get into character development with these characters, and it's great. Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum are some of my favorite dex holders. It's just great. On the contrary, Platinum chapter is D tier. This is my least favorite pokespe chapter. You know how everyone complains about the Pokemon movie Hoopa and the Clash of Ages because they just threw in a bunch of random legendaries? This chapter is just the Hoopa and the Clash of Ages chapter. They just throw in every legendary, no matter how BS it is. Oh, this guy caught this legendary, this happened in it. It's stupid, it's rushed, and it's bad, and it makes no sense, and it's just promoting all these legendaries, and it's bad. Did I mention it's bad? Because it's bad. Heart Gold Soul Silver is C tier. This chapter has no reason to exist, and it's pretty meh for the most part. Like, you could just skip this in a read of pokespe if you really wanted to. The only two good parts are Silver gets some closure with Giovanni, I guess, and Gold gets some development with Togepi. Other than that, this chapter is just eh. So, C tier it is. Black and White chapter is an easy S tier and might be my favorite chapter in all of pokespe. This is, I feel like I've repeated this multiple times, but it's your typical super long chapter at the start of a generation. Except this has like no flaws. Like, Gold Silver Crystal chapter, Ruby Sapphire chapter, they had a flaw here and there. This chapter just has none. It's too good. Black is an amazing protagonist. White is so good, I love her arc. A lot of pokespe chapters really don't have the best endings and start to drag or whatever, but this chapter just crescendos to the end. It just gets so good. Black versus N, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. I absolutely love this chapter, and yeah, I think it might be my favorite pokespe chapter. Sadly, I have to put Black 2 and White 2 chapter in C tier. This chapter had so much potential. The idea of Blake's character being this like police officer and detective and him being void of any emotions is such a cool idea. And Whitley being an ex-Team Plasma Grunt, also a cool idea. But this chapter wasn't able to deliver. It just decrescendoed the whole way through as opposed to Black and White chapter. This wasn't really a fault of the mangaka's. This chapter had a really rough publication history with it having to go on breaks and not finishing until 2020 into Gen 7, which sucks, but sadly this chapter being horrible, well not horrible, this chapter being bad was a product of the outside conditions, which sucks, but sadly this chapter just isn't that great. XY chapter is another C tier, and I think I can say pretty much everything the same here as I did about the last chapter. I love the idea of X's character being depressed, but they didn't really go anywhere with it. He was still depressed by the end of the series, really. He had one cool moment with the Mega Evolutions, that's about it. Y was an interesting character, and I enjoyed her dynamic with Yvette, but other than that, she was just kind of there, and then the Countless Rivals were just kind of there, and the only cool part of this chapter was when Blue came back, and this chapter shouldn't have to rely on old characters to be good. Aura's chapter goes straight in the D tier. This chapter had no reason to exist. It just had no reason to exist. Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, their character arcs are pretty much done. We did not need to revisit them. The best part about Ruby and Sapphire chapter is that Ruby and Sapphire were complete equals. Neither one was really the protagonist, but here they just make Ruby the protagonist and Sapphire is some sort of damsel in distress, which does not fit her character at all. Reading this chapter was a waste of my time. And finally, I'll put Sun and Moon chapter in B tier. This chapter wasn't amazing, but I really liked it for what it was. I loved Sun's character and his goal. I really like Moon's character, although she doesn't really develop, so kind of the same thing as characters like Whitley, but she's still a fun character. I love how this chapter merges elements of the Sun and Moon games and Ultra Sun and Moon games. We have Mother Beast Lucini and fighting the Crowswell, like that's so cool. I mean, it wasn't perfect, and it was kind of wacky towards the end, but overall, it was a very enjoyable chapter. Alright then, here's the final tier list. I didn't rank Sword and Shield chapter because it's not finished, but I really enjoy that chapter, so maybe I'll rank that once the chapter is finished. But anyway, here's the final tier list of all of the chapters. I think it's interesting how I ended up having like 3 in each tier, but yeah, on to ranking all of the pokespe dex holders. So first up is Red, who's going straight into the A tier. I love this character. He's kind of a basic shonen protagonist, but it makes sense for the first dex holder to be a typical shonen protagonist. He has a fun character arc. I really like him in Fire Red Leaf Green, which I think might be an unpopular opinion, but I did like him there. I think he becomes a great mentor figure later on to like Gold and Gold Silver Crystal chapter, and also I totally ship him with Misty. I'm gonna put Blue Oak in the B tier. He's blue. He's, similar to any Game Blue or Gary Oak or whatever, but he's still his own character. He has his own character development, and I like him. He was alright in the first chapter, but I think it was interesting to see him later on as he becomes the gym leader of Viridian City, and his role in Fire Red Leaf Green chapter, and then in XY chapter was pretty cool. So yeah, he's a solid B tier. Nothing amazing, but he's not bad at all. Green can go in the A tier. I love her. She's so cool. Like, she's really the first, original character of pokespe, and it's awesome to see what the mangaka decided to do with this character. I love her ties to the masked man, and her catching the legendary birds was such a cool moment. So overall, A tier, I love this character. Yellow's in the S tier. You guys saw me put Yellow chapter in the S tier earlier. You know I love this character. She's great character development. I love her in her arc. Like, Yellow chapter was the first time I truly loved pokespe, and that was because of Yellow the character. So yeah, Yellow all the way. Her development is great. She's just great. Her moments in Fire Red Leaf Green chapter are amazing. When her Pokemon get to like level 80 because of how much they want to fight. I love this character so much. Alright, I'm preparing for some angry comments because of this. Gold is going into the B tier. I like this character. He's cool. He's fun. I liked him in Gold Silver Crystal chapter, but he just felt like sort of a repeat of Red. Like, he's cool, I liked his battle style with his pool cue, but he was nothing new. He has a fun personality, he develops a bit, and I do like his Return Emerald chapter, but I can really only put him at the B tier. On the other hand, Silver's going straight into the S tier. This guy was already cool in Gold Silver Crystal chapter. He has ties to the masked man. He's just like a cool character as he fights, and he starts off as this edgy rival until we learn more about him. And then into Fire Red Leaf Green chapter where we get him with Giovanni is just amazing. He was already a great character in Gold Silver Crystal chapter, but after Fire Red Leaf Green, I just had to put him in S tier. Chris is going right into the A tier. She was the main protagonist of Gold Silver Crystal chapter as far as I'm concerned, as in, I absolutely loved her arc when she was introduced. Chasing Suicune was so cool. Her training arc is one of the best in the whole manga. Her finally getting accepted by Suicune, it's just peak fiction really. The reveal that she was helping out Emerald during Emerald chapter was also amazing, and really the only thing I can say I dislike about her is she really sucked in Heart Gold Soul Silver chapter, but I don't like Heart Gold Soul Silver chapter, so I'm just gonna ignore that. Alright, I want to talk about Ruby and Sapphire at the same time because they're both A tier characters and for similar reasons. Going into Ruby and Sapphire chapter, you probably expect the May character to do the contest because that's how she's depicted normally. I love how the mangaka decided to flip the stereotype right on his head. Instead of the May character, Sapphire, being feminine and doing contests, she's this masculine Pokemon battler, which is so cool. And then Ruby is the more effeminate character doing contests, and I love that they weren't afraid to not go for this stereotype and do whatever they want with these characters, and it was just so good. And yeah, I totally ship these two characters. How could you not? It's just perfect. Alright, Emerald's in the B tier. I don't want to repeat myself too much from when I talked about Emerald chapter. I feel like he's overhated. He's not amazing, but he's cool. I like his arc. He's fine, so yeah, B tier. Alright, I'm going to talk about Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum at the same time because they're all A tier. Like, I could talk about these characters individually, but this video is already getting long, so I'll do a bit of a lightning round. These three characters are great. I love their dynamics with each other. I love how this chapter starts off as kind of a fun slice of life. Just all of them hanging out and being friends, it's great. And then later into the chapter where they start to develop as characters, makes me truly love all of them. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I totally ship Diamond and Pearl. I love their dynamic together. If this video does well, maybe I'll do a ships tier list, but that's just asking for me to get killed in the comments, so maybe I won't do that. And Black is going straight into the S tier. This guy is as shonen protagonist as a shonen protagonist can get, but it doesn't feel like he's ripping off Red. The mangaka know what they're doing with this character, so they went full force, making him as shonen-y as shonen possible. He's a cool character alone wanting to win the Pokemon League and going for it, and I do headcanon that he eventually does win the league after Black 2 and White 2 chapter. I love how his Musharna eats his dreams and turns him into this amazing detective. He's a better detective than Blake is, and Blake's supposed to be the detective, but yeah, I love this character. Black is a top tier, S tier character, one of my favorite protagonists in all of pokespe. And White goes straight into the S tier. This character is absolutely amazing. The scene of her Tepig jumping onto N's lap and then her falling out of the Ferris wheel is possibly my favorite scene in all of pokespe. It's just so good. White's character development and her training arc on the battle subway is just peak fiction. Her growing her team to become stronger for Tepig, it's just so good. Really, if I could complain about one thing, would be I think it's kind of stupid how she got her superior. Like, why couldn't she just catch it? But other than that, this is just amazing. And yes, I ship her in Black. How could you not? OTP. And Blake goes into the C tier. He has such a cool concept, but at the end of the day, he's a worse detective than Black is, and they never really explore anything with his personality or his emotions. Cool in concept, in character, into the C tier. And Whitley is going in the C tier as well. She has a cool concept, and she's executed decently well, but she should not be a dex holder. She doesn't meet all of the qualifications of literally any other dex holder, in that she does not have any starter Pokemon. She should not be a dex holder. She should be a side character like Hugh was. So yeah, she's in the C tier. I'm putting X in the D tier. He is my least favorite dex holder. He has a cool concept. He's depressed. He wants to become undepressed. They don't do anything with it. He stays depressed. He just gets a bunch of Mega Evolution to promote Megas, gets one decently cool moment where he Mega Evolves them all, and that's it. XY Chapter is and I just don't like X. And I'm putting Y in the D tier as well. She is barely better than X. I think she has a cool moment with Yvette in that one chapter where she saves Yvette from Team Flare. That's it. Well, she has a cool moment with her mother, I guess. But that's it. She is with a cool moment or two. I just don't care for XY Chapter, or either of its dex holders. Sun is gonna go into the C tier, and he's pretty similar to characters like Blake or Whitley in that he has a cool concept and they don't do much with it. Like, he's better than Blake or Whitley because they actually do stuff with his goal. I like his backstory of wanting to save for his grandfather, and then him realizing it was all for nothing is a very impactful moment. But he doesn't get too much development, but I mean, overall he's a good character, so C tier it is. I do like Sun. And finally, Moon also goes into the C tier. She's cool concept, but same as everyone else, they don't do much with it. I like her personality. She gets zero character development, so C tier it is. And there's the final tier list. I am realizing now that I put a lot of characters in A tier, but that goes to show how well written pokespe characters are. Wow, this video ended up being 2 times as long as I thought it would, but that's fun. I'm glad I got some time to talk about my favorite characters. This was completely unscripted, as I'm sure you could tell by my constant stuttering, but I liked doing this video, so thanks for watching. If you want more pokespe content, please stick around. I have so much planned, so hopefully I'll see you in my next video.